an empty corridor, pregnant with possibilities. I'm starting off in a restrained way here. It's a quiet, downbeat start. This film has to have a slow build. And here is Alison Garland. You just see her at first, this big girl doing this menial task. And, you know, what you don't know is that the journey you're going to go on with her and with her family is going to be complex, and you're going to see depths in her character that you couldn't possibly imagine at this moment. And there, arriving at the back, is this very old lady in what, of course, turns out to be a home for elderly people. Jean Ainsley, who plays the old lady at the back, sadly died between the end of the shoot and, you know, when we finished the film, whilst we were in post-production, at a ripe old age. But she was a great actress, and indeed worked very hard for the Actors Union Equity. Called the film All or Nothing. I don't really want to talk about what that's about at this stage of the game, because, you know, it is a film that is about great feelings and great passions in ordinary lives. So we'll perhaps come back to that later. And Andrew Dixon's beautiful, sensitive music is quietly getting going here as we warm up into the mood of the film and discover slowly what it's about. A moment of rejection from a sad old lady who wants to hold on to her independence, and Rachel just being sensitive and helpful. Some people have said that perhaps this shot of the film is influenced by Ozu, the great Japanese filmmaker Yasujiro Ozu, who lived from 1903 to 1963 and made films like Tokyo Story and Early Summer. And it's certainly true that I, and indeed my cinematographer Dick Pope, are much influenced by Ozu. I mean, I think he's a great filmmaker and was famous for these very static shots in which things happened in domestic places. We weren't consciously thinking Ozu at the moment when we did this shot, but he's certainly an influence in our subconscious. Two men in a minicab talking in Punjabi, odd words like illegal and restaurant creeping, and they've got some luggage that plainly comes from the third world. Who knows who they are or where they're going, but they're on a journey in London. And here's another guy who I think, yes, he's in the minicab, same minicab. This is Phil, Timothy Spall's great central character, carrying an extremely unpleasant guy who I don't think I would want to take round London in my car, especially not if he did this and that. What a horrible bloke. And now, at work, Penny, in the foreground, played by Lesley Manville, Phil's partner, and with her, Maureen, who's both her co-worker and her neighbour. Maureen, played by the brilliant Ruth Sheen, whom everybody will remember in my film, High Hopes. Maureen, a very jolly and outgoing character, in contrast with a very sad Penny.
Free.
Posh kids going home from prep school in a cab.
Cranston Road in a minute or two.
And the cab firm itself. The interesting thing perhaps about All or Nothing is that all the black characters are people in control of things, people who are running things. That's not a general statement about England or Britain now, but it is interesting that, you know, that is the case, and I just felt it was an interesting contrast to the usual assumed picture of the role of black people in society. Talented young actor here, Leo Bill, who was in Robert Altman's Gosford Park and Danny Boyle's 28 Days Later, amongst other things. And now we have a bit of slapstick. Of course, it's not a comic film in that sense, and this is a perfectly real thing that could happen to anybody. But what it's actually about is... Whoops. There we go. It's about this character, Ron, brilliantly played by Paul Jesson, who turns out to be an inveterate liar.
I don't fucking believe it.
Listen, I've got to get the car fixed. I'm bitching the Volvo smacked me up the arse.
There he is with the first of his porky pies.
Well, I told you, no swearing over the air. What's going on?
The authorities can withdraw the licence to minicab owners if swearing is heard over the air. So obviously they can hear this conversation, and there's this sad guy, this old guy, on his way to somewhere with a bunch of flowers. And what this is actually about is Phil, Timothy Spall's central character, observing and reflecting on life with all its pain and society with all its exigencies. And indeed, as the old man plainly goes to visit his wife's grave with a bunch of flowers, there is Phil, and for the first time we really get a chance to observe and understand something of this guy who is a deep, philosophical, sensitive soul.
Overnight?
Again, like the opening corridor shot, I love to shoot things in this way, where you actually get a sort of vertical frame inside the horizontal frame. This is the scene which we shot, not this version of it, but another version of it, on the first day of filming. And like many things that people shoot on the first day of filming a film, it was awful. So much later we brought the actor Brian Bovell back and we shot it in a completely different way with a great deal of discipline. Actually, it was a rather wet day when we shot that last scene, and here, in a piece of action that's supposed to be happening at exactly the same moment, it's a bright and sunny day. But since the film is set in England, it doesn't seem remotely ridiculous. It would anywhere else in the world. We established very early on in the rehearsals and the development of this character, Lesley and I, that Penny would be a cyclist, an outdoor sort of girl. Maureen, however, would get the bus home, and here we are. We shot this actually at Stratford in the East End of London, and we just did it lots of times until we got to a good version and chose one in the cutting room. Now this estate where we shot the film, the Haddow estate in Greenwich, was empty. It had been vacated and it is being pulled down and replaced. So we had complete control over the whole thing, which was great because it meant, apart from the fact, from the practical point of view, that we didn't interfere with people's lives and get in the way, it meant that I could control a certain sort of atmosphere in the place, and it has an extraordinary range of ways of looking at it. The graffiti, by the way, that you see in this sequence, we didn't touch. It was actually there, and we didn't add to it or modify it in any way. And this is our first view of some very talented young actors, Sally Hawkins and Ben Crompton and James Corden.
He's a tosser.
Ain't a tosser. School now, you know.
I know.
And now we're inching into the central relationships, the central family in the film. This is a handheld tracking shot, and if you just see the dome in the distance, we shot this film in Greenwich. It's not actually about Greenwich, and Greenwich isn't referred to. That's where we happen to be. But it's quite good fun to be able to just glimpse what will one day be a forgotten folly, very soon, I should think. And now we connect up with the girl we saw at the very beginning of the film, and we realise that this is all part and parcel, and she is part of this family. I love that sad moment as she just closes the door. And here we are again, a vertical frame within the horizontal frame, looking through and allowing the action to happen within a static frame.
Yeah? What's for tea? Chicken and vegetable pies. And a biscuit.
You're all right, mate.
Yeah. I used to resist tracking shots, the camera moving during an essentially static moment, but somehow, as my work collaborating with Dick Pope, who is a brilliant cinematographer, has developed over the years, we've sort of, in some way I suppose I've been liberated, and somehow it seems very natural to allow the camera to creep round these guys so that we completely change not only the visual nature of the thing and their positions, but somehow our relationship to them and their relationship with each other in relation to what's being talked about. I mean, this is not news. Movies are always full of this kind of thing. But in my earlier days, if you go right back to my first film, Bleak Moments, you'll find me resisting that because of a kind of quite healthy, but rather perhaps in some sense over-purist idea that the camera had always to be motivated by the action. But actually I think it is motivated by the action here. And of course the choice of location, the choice of this, again, disused pub, again in Greenwich, helps because, you know, the way these little red stained glass remains of windows play in the shot all help the visual dynamics, and that all relates to what's actually being talked about.
Look at the bit I make.
As I say, this estate was just a joy to look at from every angle. As that little boy went past on the bicycle, you'll have to rewind to listen to this, you'll hear a kind of squeak as the wheels went round, and that was actually for real. That's what happened on the actual boy as he went past. I'm fascinated by the relationship between these two guys who plainly bond in some way. Again, they work in the same job and they live in the same place, but there's no real communication and contact between them. I think it's very important to look at these kind of male relationships sometimes that are, you know, safe but dysfunctional in some way. And of course what we've just seen is Ron with his daughter. We'll discover that in a few minutes. And here again the camera of its own volition takes off, and accompanied by Andrew's extraordinarily sensitive and appropriate music, just tilts up the building. People would say, who don't know proper film language, the camera pans up, but cameras don't pan up, they only pan horizontally because it comes from the word panoramic. So it tilts up the building and leads us into this scene.
All right. What you got there then?
Burger buns.
This is great ensemble playing, you know. These guys really, we worked for months and created this family, as indeed we did all the characters in the film. But it's absolutely integral, and they really work together in the most extraordinary way, and they are brilliant, not only brilliant actors for what they do, but brilliant actors at working with each other. And it's great character acting. Of course, none of them is playing himself or herself. I mean, if you want to look at Lesley Manville's performances in all sorts of things, not least various other of my films, you'll see what an extraordinarily versatile actress she is. In my last film before this, Topsy Turvy, she played Gilbert's wife. She was so different from this, you'd hardly know it was the same person. And there he is, the fat boy on the sofa.
Right, boy.
Sadly
Been up
unmotivated,
to today then.
jobless,
Been fighting today.
desperate.
What?
Fuck off, Mum.
James Corden is a brilliant young actor. Fat Friends, he was appeared on television and was very extraordinary, and I got him straight away to be in this. When I was auditioning the film, I saw lots and lots of young actors, and I wasn't sure exactly what the film was going to be, because that's how I work. And of course he and Alison Garland both came along to the auditions, and frankly you'd have to be blind or dead or stupid not to spot that they could obviously play brother and sister.
Fuck off.
Anyone that's been a parent can relate to this, and although I'm proud to say that I have very highly motivated and interesting and very pleasant grown-up sons in their 20s, nevertheless, you know, when they're teenagers, you do actually go through something of what we've just experienced, what we're seeing here. Of course, having once been a teenager in that famous repressive period called the 1950s, this is also about the experience of young people. It's not just about parents, and indeed the whole film is really about the relationship on a certain level between parents and children, and the pain of growing up, particularly young people who grow up in a world where there isn't much for them and there isn't much to motivate them. So it is looking at the whole thing from both important points of view.
Yeah, one of them, what's the name? Frame.
Zimmer.
Yeah. Well, they wanted to go to the next street. I says...
Because when we create this kind of material, we build these backstories and the things that have happened to the characters, and we draw from, you know, we're inventive, we use our imaginations, but we draw from research as well. And obviously, I mean, one of the things that famously happens on my films is that the actors all get out and research the various things things like the characters' work and so on and so forth. And I mean, you know, doing minicab research wasn't something that we had to do because the actors had no idea what a minicab or being in a minicab was all about. Sadly, minicabs dominate our lives, those of us who live and work in London. But nevertheless, we did tap into all kinds of minicab stuff and the difficulties that the guys have. And here's a guy, I mean, Phil, he's not a regular sort of minicab. I mean, he's too generous, he's too sensitive. That's the whole thing, that's what the film is about. So this little story about the old guy, you know, and him feeling that he didn't really want to charge him, it was a good opportunity just to be able to set up the relationship and the tensions at this point in their story between Penny and Phil.
Fancy going for a walk later on?
You saw her cycling. She likes to get out. She wants to go for a walk. You know, she's surrounded by her overweight, a little bit lazy members of her family. It's very frustrating. And of course, it's really about something rather deeper than that. There's a real failure to share and communicate. And the film really is going to explore how that can be unlocked.
Hey, Stuart.
So?
It's pudding.
I know.
I love this character walk. It says so much about Maureen.
No!
Leave that.
Now here we have Marion Bailey, who is one of the great depictors of drunken women, and indeed women under all kinds of pressures. I've worked with her before. Most famously, she was in my film Meantime, which she made in 1983, back then with Gary Oldman and Tim Roth, a film about unemployment. And she was also in my play, which ran in the West End, Goose Pimples, as was Paul Jesson. They were both in that show, playing very different characters from what they're playing here.
What? Little drink.
Marion combines extraordinary kind of sensuality with an ability to sort of do grossness, really, and it's very real and very moving and also very funny. Sally Hawkins is an extremely nice person, very good at this character, Samantha. When she wasn't in character, she hated wearing the costume with her tits hanging out. She felt very exposed, but she was perfectly comfortable once she was in character. She is a consummate character actress.
Is that all?
Yeah.
There's 2 chicken korma in there.
No, right.
We had them last night.
No, we never.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, me and Dad.
You never had nothing.
She never fucking does. So what are we doing then?
No, maybe I'll...
But obviously what's important about this lot is that the parents are more dysfunctional than the daughter, although she is unemployed. But as we'll get to understand her, we'll see what her strengths really are later in the film. It was an oddity of the flats on this estate that they were each on 2 floors, which seems a bit strange, but that's the way it was. No. Now, of course, in this scene, and here Ruth Sheen's joined by the brilliant Helen Coker, there's a kind of... it works on 2 levels. I mean, obviously it's relationship stuff, but it's also sort of cracking sort of vaudeville dialogue. You know, it's sort of like a double act, really, and we had a great deal of fun with the sort of the wisecracking nature of the thing.
I want mashed potato.
And it is all about language, the rhythm of language and the kind of poetry of the thing, the comic poetry.
2?
Funny.
3?
Shut up.
Everybody knows that I work for long periods, months on end, with the cast before making these films. And All or Nothing is, of course, no exception. But what's very important, too, is the collaboration between myself and the actors with the production designer, in this case, Eve Stewart, and the costume designer, Jacqueline Durran, and the makeup and hair designer, Christine Blundell. And if you look at it, you'll see that there's a great fusion of all these things. Obviously, the way we all work with a cinematographer, with the look of the thing, is important. But, you know, the accuracy of the costumes, the quality of the environment, and the way these things blend together, that's not always the case in films, because with All or Nothing we were able, as we always are on my films, to really collaborate and to discuss and to shoot tests and to know each what the other was up to. And of course, you know, as I've already said, this extraordinary location afforded a particular kind of feel and a particular kind of look, which was very controllable. And the way that the costumes and the makeup have been worked out in relation to the quality of the environment and the whole look that gives me and the cinematographer is very important.
All right?
All right.
Daniel Mays. Daniel Mays is an extraordinary young actor, and of course he plays here one of the most unpleasant guys you could meet. But in fact, you know, he's, again, a great character actor. He's a very nice guy. He's not like this at all, but he knows these guys. He's from Essex, and he knows these guys, and he's dead accurate.
Right, come on.
All right, Donna? Yeah. Can I come too?
No, you can't.
Why not? Back off.
And I think what we've successfully pulled off in this scene is a way of exploring things happening down there with things happening up here. And so whilst on one level it's all about the characters and their interrelationships and, establishing neighbours and communication and non-communication and all of that, it's also a very good way of exploring this environment and getting the sense of the human scale of the place.
What do you keep fucking looking at me for? Don't fucking look at me, I'll fucking slice you, you cunt!
And of course, unfortunately, this film shares with Ken Loach's film Sweet 16 that came out at the same time, the use of the word cunt, which earned us our 18 certificate and precluded a very large proportion of the audience that ought to have seen the film from seeing it at the cinema. Hopefully you who are under 18 and who are watching this now are catching up with a film that you should have seen previously.
What are you looking for?
Money.
You ain't come down there.
Now what happens in these minicab firms is that you actually rent the radio from the owner, and then you keep any money you make. And so for £80 a week or something, Phil, has the privilege of working for his employer. But if he's had a bad week, as he has, he's got to scrape that £80 together in cash, and that's what he's doing here. I think it's a very sad scene, this, and Timothy Spall handles it with great sensitivity. I love staircases. There's more staircase to come in this film. I don't think I've ever made a film, apart from perhaps Nuts in May, which all took place on a campsite, which didn't have staircase sequences. Look at the way Dick Pope has lit this nighttime stuff. You may say, well, it's night, it's in a room, but there are ways of doing it and there are ways of getting it wrong. He's just got the real quality of the room and it's a little bit heightened, but it's in no way sensationalised. It's incommensurate with the style of the acting and of the storytelling. We're not sentimental, but it's sensitive.
Yeah.
I love the way that Rachel is forever reading these paperback novels. You never find out what she's really reading, but you just know that she's in there in this other world, escaping into this world that's romantic and different from the humdrum world she lives in.
I'll get back to you.
Okay.
Thanks, love. Night.
Night.
Well, he's managed to raise a few bob from his daughter, and now his missus. Again, you see, it's only by having a pair of actors like Timothy Spall and Lesley Manville, who really are so solid in the characters and the relationship, and who really, as themselves, so friendly to each other and sort of have got such a real rapport. Only by having that element in place can we then explore this very, very subtle and complex relationship, which appears to be entirely dysfunctional. But of course, there's so much happening under the surface, so much pain and disappointment.
Play back at the weekend.
And humiliation on his part.
Mornings. Drive people to work, take them to the airport.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
It's downstairs in me bag, in me bike basket.
So take it out.
No, I'll bring it up.
All right.
See, some people, I mean, including some critics like the evil Jonathan Ross in the UK, have sort of dismissed this film as being boring and humdrum and about the kind of people you don't want to watch on the screen. But, I find that very cynical and very despicable, really, because these, people live their lives like this, and it's very difficult for folk. And there's great passion going on here and great care and great sort of frustration, and it's very important, it seems to me, to put these things on the screen without being mawkish or sentimental or judgmental.
Do you want me to take that downstairs for you?
No.
Guess a clue then.
And I just needed a way of exploring the fact that apart from all this, difficulty he's having, he's a bright guy, he knows things.
Starting with a J.
And this just allows it in here, this crossword.
Oh, yeah.
No, it ain't. What's his name? Jacob.
And, you know, I love the fact that there's some confusion over Old Testament characters because, you know, people do mix them up because it doesn't quite... The people who are of this age who weren't indoctrinated with things at Sunday school, I mean, you know, it's a bit... It's kind of general knowledge rather than part of the religious background in any way.
Got me a minute.
Night.
And you can almost cut this separateness with a knife. When we'd stopped shooting the film, there was a little gap, and I went to Florence for a few days. Actually, I was there on September the 11th, 2001, when it all happened in New York. But Andrew Dixon had sort of watched a cut of the film and was back in England, down in Dorset where he lives, thinking about what music he was going to give it. And I was outside the Uffizi in Florence, and there were two guys playing guitars. And although they were playing that sort of fairly mawkish music, and they were there to entertain the interminable queue outside the Uffizi, it just occurred to me that two guitars might give us something. And in fact, I called him and suggested it. And indeed, part of this little ensemble of musicians that he's got on this track includes two guitars. I think it's the most sensitive music, as I've said before, and he's got this wonderful way of bringing out the flavour, the emotional flavour of what's happening. In other words, he doesn't really illustrate what's happening, he actually underpins it, and it's very special. Now here, in the old folks' home, we are introduced to Sid. That's not the little old guy that we see on screen at the moment, but in fact that old character there with the specs, played by the glorious Sam Kelly, whom I've had the privilege of working with many times, from television work I did back in the 80s, including Grown Ups right through to Topsy Turvy, and of course people will know him from Allo Allo and all kinds of Porridge, all kinds of television stuff. And he is able to create the most moving characters, as he does here, but he is also one of the funniest men in the world, and working with him is often excruciatingly painful because he just is so funny. I mean, there's no question that Phil does have something of a lying-in problem, and that cannot be denied.
Looks good. 150.
180.
You said 150.
Overnight service run.
We've all been there. You just get ripped off every which way, especially if you're trying to run a car. And if you've got to run an old jalopy for your survival, it's very difficult. We look at Paul Jasson, and you know, this is really a great example of collaboration between him and me and the makeup costume designer Chrissy Blundell. I mean, look at him, he's still got his 1960s tash and sideburns and his 60s long hair, as indeed as the younger Phil.
Yeah. From over the chip shop.
Gary MacDonald, who plays Neville, the boss of this place, is an extraordinary actor. I worked with him a couple of times in the past. The last time I did a stage show, speaking as I do, at the beginning of 2003, was 10 years ago at the Theatre Royal Stratford East, a play called It's a Great Big Shame, in which he was very extraordinary in two separate characters.
So where's the rest?
He really knows how to do all manner of certainly London black characters and West Indians and guys born in London and guys born in different parts of the Caribbean, and he's quite good at Africans too.
Go to the bank, man. Sick my stomach.
Yeah.
Take two now.
Picking up Phil?
I'll owe you a tenner.
I'm always fascinated myself by the people struggling with the details of money. I mean, money is such a complicated convention when you think about it. All these bits and pieces of metal and paper that all over the world people struggle with. I find it endlessly fascinating. As indeed I am fascinated by telephones and telephone communication.
Boy, you have a bad attitude, sir. From my barn.
I was asked to choose a name for this place, so I called it Brook House. You can see the sign. I had to choose from a list of ones that didn't actually exist. I chose Brook House because I used to live at a building called Brook House in near Euston Station, so I thought that was amusing. I love the way that this old lady progresses very slowly and surely up the road. Eve Stewart found this extraordinary, tacky 1950s cafe in southeast London. The colours and the quality and the atmosphere is dead right for where Donna would work, and indeed for the spirit of this acerbic scene between these two terrifying young ladies. Again, played by very nice actresses who are really good character actresses.
Why should I have a problem?
Did you have a good time last night?
Yeah, I did actually.
The subtext is always important, isn't it? You know, what's really going on, what they're actually talking about, what the real motivation
Where
is.
did he take you then?
Never you mind.
Somewhere nice, was it?
Yeah, it was actually.
I reckon you got a bit of
This is a
coffee.
film about waste, in my view. It's a film about potential and about, you know, young people's lives going to waste. These girls are bright, you know, they're intelligent and they're witty, but it's all turned in on itself. It's all warped. It's all going nowhere. It's very sad. And of course, here they are, pitched against somebody who, in many ways, hasn't got all the privilege of being kind of sassy, because she's, you know, a dumpy girl and plain, but she's got a job which, however awful it is in some way, you know, it affords her scope for her integrity. In some way she's fulfilled, ironically. And that tension, I think, is what we're trying to express here in this,
What do you have to do
in
then?
this scene.
At work?
Cleaning.
This strange attitude to old people,
you have to
as expressed here
work
by
on your
these young
values.
people. I think it's a modern phenomenon. I think up until not very long ago, young people grew up more taking for granted the condition of old people, but somehow, because of the way that we live and
Yeah, but at least I've got a job.
the things that are now important, somehow many young people are distanced from knowing how to care properly about old people and indeed death.
Just got to clear out their rooms.
So we've quietly established this character that Ben Crompton plays, and obviously he is in some way stalking this girl. And it's some matter of embarrassment for her and some irritation.
How much do you think it's going to be?
Now here's Alex Kelly, who's a great singer and actress who played the main part in the revival of Leonard Bernstein's Candide at the Royal National Theatre. And here she is doing a quite different sort of thing, delivering very spontaneously this very neurotic young lady in the back of a cab. It was great to get lots of actors to come in and do what similarly people did in Secrets and Lies when they were having their photographs taken, to just supply a great range of these cameo parts with great wit and accuracy. And this is Alan Williams, who was one of the great fringe actors of the 1960s, and he's still at it. He's actually improvising this scene, which is unusual because most of the stuff in the film is scripted.
Just get thinking too much.
I worked with him on what sort of thing it would be, but he's very good at doing this kind of extraordinary stream of consciousness. And the weird thing is, he doesn't drink himself, so he's playing this extremely pissed guy, but he actually is dry himself. I could watch this forever.
See that
It's
door
great
there?
fun.
It used to open inwards.
Yeah.
Should have.
Very hard to tell the story when it comes to Penny here, of a woman who is suffering and worrying about something, but you don't actually know what it is. So we're just quietly building up the sense of this pain as the film progresses.
Did you go to bed early?
The staff room at the old folks' home, and continuing this gallery of black characters played by very talented black actors. There's Michelle Austin, who is very funny and very real and a very intelligent actress. I love the juxtaposition of time
1950 or something.
1950, and suddenly it evokes, you know, a long time ago. I was 7 in 1950, and I think we worked out this character's a tiny bit older than me. It seems both a long time ago and only yesterday, and that's obviously what this is about for this guy. His whole life has gone by.
Pacing about.
Here we're beginning to see this relationship, such as it is, between this guy Sid and Rachel, and it's very sad, and he's a very lonely guy, and something is going on between them, but it's not something one necessarily wants to confront, perhaps. And it's great to see Green Arrow fighting its way into a major motion picture. I think it's very good news without it having actually to be a commercial for Green Arrow.
Good night's sleep.
Thanks.
I bet you'll be up late tonight, won't you, with your boyfriend? Saturday night.
I ain't got a boyfriend.
I think this is one of Sam Kelly's greatest performances, and I say that, you know, not to congratulate myself. It's just he is a very brilliant actor, and he's distilled something down into this character that's really kind of condensed and intensive and felt and real and sad and also in some way comic, but only just. A formal, symmetrical shot expressing the simplicity of Rachel's loneliness.
What are you doing?
What's it look like I'm doing?
I don't know. That's why I'm asking you.
Now here begins a sustained, longish scene between these two. All kinds of stuff going on, and of course what we've tried to do, as with all this material, is to, you know, really make it real and make it live in the moment and be detailed in every way. And people often misunderstand what I do with my films. People will say to me of a scene like this, well, you know, presumably it was improvised, because it feels like it is. And indeed I feel that all scenes in films should, in strict terms, feel like they're improvised. That's to say, they should feel like real life, the way we all behave, the way we improvise, we make it up as we go along in our lives, in our conversation. But of course this is not improvised. It's very, very accurately rehearsed. And I suppose it might be useful just to talk about how a scene like this comes into existence. It's important when you look at the scene to remember that it's shot absolutely in the location. It's not a studio thing, and that we're using the constrained nature of the location not only for the reality of the acting and the sense of the real time and place from the actor's character point of view, but also it helps us to shoot the film. I mean, you can see the way we use the door in that last shot, the doorway, to help frame it. And here we're using the actual room, and it was very claustrophobic when we were actually filming it, but it was very, very, very potent being in that room in this flat. We'd spent ages arriving at the characters by lots of discussion and preparation, and then we'd explored their whole relationship over a period of time. And then going to the location, we did an extent of improvisations in the room, and out of those improvisations, through rehearsal, working with the actors, I'm able to build the scene so that what we arrive at is absolutely precise and carefully scripted and totally natural and organic, but has that feeling of reality, of spontaneity, which is, as I say, what any scene in a film can only be expected to have.
And you go all cold on me. When you blow all hot and cold on her like some fucking...
Some people have asked me whether Dan Mays is an actor with a real scar on his face. Of course he's not. Of course it's makeup, and again, it's testament to Christine Blundell's brilliant makeup. She did get the Oscar for the makeup on Topsy Turvy.
I want you to go.
Yeah, well, I'm going, ain't I?
I want to talk to you.
What do you want to talk about?
It's quite hard to construct a scene, if you like to write a scene, when the main actual action, when you boil down to it, is this girl is going to tell the guy that she's pregnant. I mean, it's there are all kinds of conventional, easy traps to fall into, just being kind of mawkish and sentimental, and without being too rude about it, sounding like something out of the Archers. But in fact, by working at it in this organic way, and by improvising it, and then finally building it in a sophisticated way, somehow we're able to arrive at it without it being her saying, "I've got something to tell you." Dun, 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 dun. I'm pregnant, which of course will be horrible.
You fucking know for 2 weeks and you didn't bother to tell me!
But again, because we've sort of worked it through in a very real way, the way he accepts it and the way he fights back at the idea he's in denial of what she's saying, we're able to express and get happening, I think, fairly accurately. These are brilliant young actors, and frankly, they were a joy to work with. So we decided that there would be a karaoke scene in the film. And one day Ruth Sheen here said to me, just at the back end of the rehearsal, she said, there's an actual karaoke going on across the road. This was across the road from the place we were rehearsing in Greenwich. Why don't we go and have a, just remind ourselves how these things operate, which we'd both experienced in the past. But I said, yeah, good idea, and in we went. It was fairly early in the evening, and there weren't very many people in, and the guy that you see there, being the MC, was in fact MCing this, what turned out to be a competition. And we sat down and we just sort of observed in a kind of clairvoyant sort of way, just doing our research. And then, we had to sort of vaguely justify our existence. So I said to Ruth, well, why don't you sing something? Because Ruth actually has a very good singing voice. And incidentally, we did make the decision that Maureen should have the same good singing voice. She could have been a bad singer, but we thought it was more interesting and more attractive if she actually, for all her problems in life, turned out to be someone who could really sing. So Ruth said, yeah, okay, I'll have a go. And she got up and sang. And of course, they loved it. They thought she was great. And they asked to do another one, but by that time we wanted to go off, get an early night because we were up early the next morning to do some work. So off we each went to our respective homes, Ruth and I. Well, some weeks later, the assistant directors said, now, we need to get an MC for this karaoke scene. I said, well, why don't you try this guy? Track him down through that pub. So they did. And it turned out that weeks later, they'd wondered what had ever happened to Ruth because she'd won the competition that had gone on for weeks. And she never actually knew.
Listen to me, right? This doesn't have to be a big thing.
So here we are, back on the stairs. As I've said, I love shooting on the stairs, although this is very difficult, this scene. And of course, it's only the brilliance of Dick Pope and his camera work that he's able to serve this and light it so brilliantly and have the camera in the right place, because if it was a studio you could get rid of the wall and put the camera wherever you like, but here we're very cramped. I mean, actors, camera, me, it was like the Black Hole of Calcutta in there, but you can't tell, and it's very, very well done.
I don't want to be a dad, Donna, right? I don't want to do it. I ain't up to it. I don't even want to be with you.
Fuck off!
Yeah, I've been thinking about it for a couple of months now, thinking about...
Of course people find this hard to take. It is hard to take, but it's absolutely rooted in the kind of experience so many of us have, it's for real.
You know when I went up to Newcastle with Cookie and the boys?
And here we're plugging into, the preparatory work we did, the whole story we explored in building up their relationship, the backstory, if you like. And just as Dan Mays here is brilliant at the nastiness of this guy, so Helen Coker is quite extraordinary in the way that she's not only vulnerable and afflicted by this guy, but there's also the way she's underneath, she's got this kind of dignity on the go as well. It's very complex what she's doing, and really, you should look at it and see what's going on. There's so much stuff happening.
You fucking mug!
So the three girls are on their night out. I'm very pleased with the way we've defined the three characters here. And again, look at the fusion of the action, the design, and the costume design. Costume becomes part of the action. Jacqueline Duran's costumes are very, very brilliant for this film. Very, very accurate. And of course, compared with Topsy Turvy, done very cheaply. A lot of stuff came out of charity shops, which he didn't for Topsy Turvy. The girl who's singing behind was doing very well, but she was horrified when during the scene there's an insulting remark made about her by one of the characters, and found it hard to accept that this was only a character speaking and not an expression of our view of her singing.
You gonna have a sing?
Of course, what we did here is to rehearse the and write the scene and put it together in a different place, and then bring it and perform it in this situation and shoot it. And of course, what happens in a scene like this in a film is that the extras all have to talk in mime, really not vocalise their natural-looking talk at all, so that we can just record the main dialogue and then mix in the other sounds, that the extras talking, etc., and all the other noises off in the editing and the sound mix afterwards. So here we have one woman who's married and one woman who hasn't ever got married and one woman who hasn't got anybody to marry, and the three of them are together having a jolly night out.
Oh, fucking hell. No, don't touch it.
Emma Lowndes and Maxine Peake, two brilliant young actresses. They both went to RADA and they both got strong northern accents, and they're both playing perfect Cockneys here, and they're very clever.
A warm welcome to our next singer. Put your hands together for Maureen. Come on down, Maureen.
And as I've already said, we just thought it was a great wheeze for Maureen to be able to sing properly, because you kind of assume she's going to be terrible, really, because everything else is terrible. And she's got this absolutely beautiful singing voice. And why shouldn't she? The world is full of talented people who have never had the opportunity to do anything with it. And Carol is very, very drunk. And as I've said before, Marion Bailey is very good at doing very drunk people. And here she is in a seriously inebriated state while this song is being sung so beautifully. And all the while, Penny is going through her own crisis, her own feeling that she's not really, she doesn't enjoy all this. She doesn't, she knows that Maureen is friendly, but she doesn't really find it easy to enjoy herself, let her hair down. Nor does Carol, but she doesn't know it. She thinks letting her hair down is all about getting desperately drunk.
Tell me you love me and don't say goodbye.
There's two actors there, Matt Bardock and Mark Benton. They're both very good actors. Mark Benton was in my film Career Girls. We had a scene here which unfortunately we cut, which is why two very distinguished actors are doing what looks like playing extras. We recognise them both there. But unfortunately the scene held the action, the main thrust of the film up, so we had to cut it out. All four of the actors in this scene were in topsy-turvy. Of course, Timothy Spall was, and Martin Savage on the right there played Grove Smith the comedian, and Dorothy Atkinson behind on the right was Jessie Bond. I love to see them here, having done their 19th century characters, being these early 21st century decadent, stoned, taciturn, nocturnal revellers. I think it's great fun. Now we continue the story of Samantha and this sad guy who, well, I said he was stalking her, but she's egging him on, really. I mean, this is a terrible prick-teasing scene that we're going to see here. She's winding him up, and she's being extremely dangerous and destructive with him, really. And the poor guy can't really handle it. I think it's beautifully acted and it's beautifully shot, this. Look at the way Dick Pope has shot this. It's obviously shot at night. There's this row of garages here that we've used, and I just thought it would be good to sort of start close up to it and we track along. Again, the graffiti on the garage door is for real. We haven't done anything to enhance or remove the graffiti. The graffiti comes from the old estate ready-made. The camera is close to them, and as they move along later in the scene, you'll see that the camera tracks but moves slightly further away all the time. And it's a great piece of collaboration between myself and the actors and Dick Pope and his team. We're always served on these films, when we do our tracking shots and all kinds of fancy camera work, by a grip. That's the name of that's the job of somebody who moves the camera. And this guy, Colin Strachan, is a great grip, one of the greatest. He's very, very talented, because it's not just a question of having the muscle to push and pull a camera around. It's having the sensitivity, a sense of timing to be able to get it accurate. That car there was actually in that garage, and we decided that rather than remove it, we'd simply let it become part of the action. I love to use things that are there and allow them to integrate themselves with the organic action in a film, in a scene.
Like that, do you? Yeah.
I'm filming this in the middle of the night, you know, lens to the atmosphere. It was very still, very silent, a little bit ominous. You never see him smoking indoors. We haven't seen him smoking. This is the only time we see it, and it turns out to be very important. So remember, you saw him smoking. This is the worst fear of all cab drivers, the guy that just won't pay.
You're right.
Now, this is Joe Tucker, who's not only a brilliant actor, but a consummate writer and director, and his feature film Lava, which he wrote, directed and played, in which he played the main part, was a very special and very extraordinary, funny, violent film. It was the film set in Notting Hill where you did see the carnival, unlike a certain other film set in Notting Hill where the carnival apparently didn't exist at all.
It's too short.
But Phil is philosophical about it. Life's too short.
I'm free.
And here I'm paying homage to all those of us whose endless misfortune it is to drop off on the sofa when we should have gone to bed and not hung around. And Lesley does this beautifully. You can feel her back. Oh, there it goes. Oh, God. And, oh, her head.
Did you have a good time?
I don't know if I identify with this.
Always better.
Look at the colours in this. The colour of the costume and the colour of the flesh tones and the furniture, even the money. It's all on the dark, his dark shape on the side, the way it's integrated, the design, the costume, the makeup and the cinematography. It's a joy to work with these people, and of course they absolutely know how to serve the kind of shots and the kind of storytelling that I'm trying to do. It's very, 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 very fulfilling, I find.
Morning.
And here in the old folks' home is an old lady played by Edna Dore, whom many people will remember playing the central old lady, Mrs. Bender, in my 1988 film
Are you a bit late this morning?
High Hopes, that Ruth Sheen was in.
No, it's all right. I'll go and do Bill first.
This little scene just affords us the opportunity to see Rachel again at work and being sort of helpful and sympathetic and useful. Now here we do something with the shot that I really like. I like doing this sort of thing because you've got, within the frame, there are two quite separate worlds going on. I mean, he's there facing to the right and there's their world on the right, and then there's a separate world of the old lady going into the loo down the left-hand side of the frame. And I like to do that. I like the tension between different things happening, different worlds colliding within a frame. It's very interesting and very cinematic. Talking of which, watch this shot. Watch what the camera does here. It's a tracking shot. It's constantly on the move. There it is. It's moved round to the left, and now,
What's that on your face? Someone hit you?
as they move off, it moves back round to the right. It's a subtle move, but it facilitates shooting in a tight space. And having got them along the veranda on a very long lens shooting through a tree, now we're back in exactly the same position. The camera is in the same position as it was when she was in there in the same room with her boyfriend previously. And so you subconsciously connect up to that as we now go into the relationship between mother and daughter. And what I love about this scene is the way that the daughter is obviously grown up and the mum accepts that, but at the same time she's, you know, giving her the maternal treatment that she had when she was a kiddie, because that's what she needs. She needs tender, loving care and affection. She needs a bit of mumming, and that's what she's getting. But of course mum is getting aggravation back, and that's understandable too, because Donna is hiding something.
Yes, shut up.
And there you get a moment that tells you everything about
I don't want you to see him no more.
Maureen's own predicament when she became pregnant with Donna. And of course what you realise is that this is history repeating itself. This is Donna possibly setting out on the same journey as her mother and perpetrating the same unfortunate mistake.
Oh, Donna, I thought you was on the pill.
I am on the pill.
Well, don't you take it no more?
Yeah.
What, weekends only?
And even in a moment like this, Maureen can't help making a gag. She's just a woman with a sense of humour, that's all there is to it.
Yeah. How far gone are you?
Very brave of Helen Coker here, because she had to walk around with her hair looking like that throughout the entire time we were filming. That's the thing that people overlook about what actors have to go through. But, you know, it's worth it, because this extraordinary piece of streaking is absolutely spot on for this character, for Donna.
I'll make you a cup of tea.
And here's an interesting thing. Notice how she asks her if she wants 2 sugars. Now, you might say, surely a mother would know whether her daughter took sugar and how many she took. But obviously what's happening is sometimes she takes sugar and sometimes she doesn't. Depends, you know, how she feels. Depends on what her sugar level's doing. And obviously she doesn't take sugar often because she wants to keep her figure trim. But at the same time, when she needs it, she'll have it. And that's what's happening there. And talking of intake, here's the family at lunch. Again, we're looking through a doorway. You can see the sides of the doorway, and we're looking down at the table. So it's a kind of formal composition. What a nice boy.
Stop being rude to me, please.
And watch what happens with the camera work here in the cinematography. Camera tilts up, and there's a wonderful tension between this quite nice day that's going on through the window and this pain and agony that's going on in the room. And subtly, Dick Pope tilts down again after Rory's gone out and settles on this forlorn threesome. People often ask me what the casting director does. Now, I work with a casting director called Nina Gold, and obviously, you know, I make these films with no script, so she doesn't really cast the film herself in the sense that she fills in actors for the characters that already exist. But what she's brilliant at is wheeling in actors, because she knows where to find them, who she thinks are the sort of actors that I'm going to like and like to work with. So people like Dan Mason, Helen Coker here in the middle and on the left, and all the young actors in this film are people that she has sort of seen in shows or, you know, clocked, and is able to line them up.
You fucking handcuffed me!
It's an art in itself, and she's brilliant at it.
What you doing here then?
And look at the way the environment contributes to this scene. You know, in old-fashioned film, studio filmmaking, they would have built a set here, and you'd have had a sort of painted backdrop of the flats. But it wouldn't have been as good. You know, you've got the real sense of the world outside there, and it's breathing. And we were able to develop this scene by being in the real place and using the real door and using the dynamic between the stairs and the door and the outside and the 2 people inside and the guy outside. It's all integral, and it's all very much about location filmmaking. And indeed continuing that, using it. Samantha hanging around out there, somehow she's clocking what's going on.
Dummy then, Ashley.
And this relationship which is being subtly brewing, well, I use the word subtly very vaguely, she tags along with him.
How you feeling? All right.
And this is a real imaginative composition. There she is in the foreground, slightly soft focus, Helen Coker, Donna, and sort of drooped around the side of the frame, which really makes it possible to get a sense of the relationship between the 2 of them.
I don't know. What, you want to have an abortion?
No.
I love what we've done in this scene in the writing of the dialogue. There's unstated stuff and gradually inching towards the inevitable.
Ha ha.
Suit yourself.
And that sense of humour never goes away with Maureen. It's so important that we know that Maureen's going through her own crises, because in due course, not very far away now, she's going to be at the centre of somebody else's crisis. And it's important that her whole role in those events is going to be informed for us by her own problems.
Let's get this off.
And of course it goes without saying that actors and actresses who take part in scenes like this are very courageous in doing so. We obviously film them with as few people as possible around when it's being filmed, but still to expose yourself in this way, even though this is very much about characters, does involve a certain kind of courage which people sometimes don't appreciate.
Fucking hell.
Nah.
You're a fucking nightmare, aren't you?
Yeah.
The first thing I ever directed professionally was a stage production of Harold Pinter's play, The Caretaker. And I was really in many ways very influenced by Harold Pinter, who in his turn had been influenced by Samuel Beckett, who I certainly regard as an influence and have much enjoyed reading all of his novels. And indeed, one of the few other actual existing plays I directed was his play Endgame. And although, like the beginning of the film, where I talked about Ozu, and there was an influence of Ozu on that opening shot, but we weren't very conscious of it at the time, I think there's quite a sort of Beckett-Pinter thing going on in this scene, if I think about it. It's not something that I thought about at the time, but I've realised, looking at the scene, that it's very much there as part of my general subconscious influence thing. This is an extraordinarily photographed scene. I mean, one of the main elements, of course, is that, you know, this extraordinary blue bath in this room for scrubbing down old folk was in this disused old folks' home, which we got to shoot these sequences in. And somehow that fused with this very, very sad, distilled relationship between these two, which is now really at its crisis point in our little subplot about them. This fuses with the look of the thing and this kind of baleful Samuel Beckett kind of landscape that we have them dwelling in so sadly and so helplessly.
No.
And so forlornly. And then suddenly...
Oh, Rachel, when you got a moment, you couldn't have a look in Bertha's room. She's in the lounge now. I mean, she's managed to do a bit of a number twos on the carpet again. I cleaned most of it up. It just needs a bit of a mop and that. All right.
I call the off-screen character Bertha because I had an aunt called Bertha who died not so long ago. And I wasn't very fond of her, really, so I just thought I'd somehow have her as the old lady who'd crapped herself. Just a personal thing. Fusion of the tracking shot and the acting and the music here. Very pleased with this bit. And a strange moment between Carol and Rory.
All right.
Which came out of some improvisation work that we did way back in the rehearsals. Again, I suppose this has a kind of Beckett forlorn landscape feel to it. I don't know. I've only just thought of that.
You all know the centre of London, the West End.
Yeah.
Well, all these scenes in the car have been shot on what's called a low loader, which is where you put the car on a thing and drive all around London. There'll all be these little short scenes with these brief views of these passengers, and now of course you think this is going to be another one, perhaps a comic turn. But she turns out to be a major player in the story. And the performance here of Catherine Hunter, who is a very distinguished and original theatre actress, one of the founders of Théâtre de Complicité, and also a director, gives us this extraordinary characterisation to which we will return shortly. And these two actresses here, Georgia Fitch on the left and Tracy O'Flaherty, very good actresses, both writers, both originally trained at East 15 Acting School in Essex, where Ruth Sheen herself went, and which has produced lots of famous improvising actors. And we enter the Blackwall Tunnel. And there's trouble.
I do not like this tunnel.
My idea here is that first you should think this is just a comic turn, and then in due course, you know, you discover that this, as I say, is something very serious and major and central to the emotional core of the film.
We must make the tunnel. It is okay? C'est pas compliqué quand même.
Catherine Hunter, who, as I say, is a brilliant stage actress, who somewhat has some reservations in the past about being in films. I won't list such films as she's been in that have given her reservations, but I can understand it here, having seen some of the films in question. But she did enjoy doing this, and she is quite extraordinary at delivering these precise and slightly bizarre characters. She has actually played on the stage, she has actually played King Lear, and at the time of speaking she is about, in 2003 in the spring, to play Richard III at the Globe Theatre in London, the open air theatre.
With a turn it is complètement différent. You see nothing? This conversation is very boring for me.
Fair enough.
You are married?
Yeah.
With the children?
So I really enjoy the tension between this uncharacteristic character for these all-or-nothing folk, this pushy French lady, and, you know, Phil just kind of coping and fielding the questions and, you know, slightly reflecting and winding her up. And Rory just playing football and being wound up by these guys and his short fuse. And on the face of it, this is a non-event, just boys, you know, lads messing about. But all of a sudden, we're into something quite other. And everything from here on in will turn upside down and inside out. This film, All or Nothing, is edited by one of the great film editors, Lesley Walker. She has this ability of putting the shots together in a very, very precise and sensitive way. This is very interestingly shot, I feel. We've got all kinds of different shots on the go serving the action. A very interesting tracking shot there that moved with him as he landed and now moves back as Carol comes over and joins him. I love the thing she does here. She asks him if he wants to cry. I mean, the guy's actually got a heart attack on the go, well, she doesn't know that. But Maureen to the rescue, and of course Carol's been to buy some booze, and, well, she's put it down, but she ain't going to leave without it, even though she's going to go off and do something very important, deliver a message, call for an ambulance.
Yes! Carol, go on! Don't lie down.
There she goes. Got the booze, and the camera tracks back again. This shot, when we shot it, went backwards and forwards several times. It's very sensitively done. And there it is. And in preparation for this, James Corden and I worked with a couple of doctors and a nurse to sort of get accurate what the whole condition would be and how it would work and what it would be like for a young guy.
She works in an old people's home.
And of course, dramatically, what I'm, I suppose, enjoying here is the parallel action. The fact that he's blithely talking about fondly talking about his kids when this crisis is going on, which he isn't going to know about for a while.
Was it a bargain?
Of course. It is for my client in New York.
And like the reference to 1950 in the middle of a previous scene, the fact that here's somebody who's got a client in New York in the middle of all this going on, in the middle of All or Nothing, I just find very, it's funny, it's exciting, and it's one of the ironies of the world, really.
World champion by now.
And indeed, the importance of this artefact that she's got wrapped in newspaper, plainly picked up from some kind of antique dealer in South London. Yeah. I just love that. I love the role of inanimate objects in unlikely circumstances. Absolutely paralysed. Paralytic and paralysed. Can't get it together to call for an ambulance.
Mama!
So, Samantha takes control, spots it straight in. And now this is the important thing about this character, Samantha. As I said, the film is about potential, it's about fulfillment, it's about waste. And here is a girl who, you know, initially when we first saw her, presents as being somebody who is, you know, a waster, an idle, and so forth, sarcastic, acerbic, and so forth. But when the crisis comes, she actually takes control of the situation, and you suddenly see her for what she could be. You see her, you know, possibilities as a good citizen who could have a useful role in society if only she'd get the opportunity.
I am ashamed.
And here are these two somehow coming together, you know, sharing their problems, their lives. We filmed this. We're actually in Russell Square at this point in the proceedings. We shot it on the low loader. We went all over central London. The weather was very much on our side. And this particular shot, another take, a fire engine appeared right behind them, trying to get through. In fact, we were in the way from the fire station down in the Euston Road. And of course, when we shot it, we thought, oh, great, a fire engine, that adds to it. But of course, it was a nuisance and a red herring. And of course, we didn't use that take. And I'm just establishing, you know, a few people gathering around the crisis here.
Fucking way!
Just sketching it in.
Yeah, he's breathing.
And Samantha
No, if he's breathing, he's got pulse, hasn't he?
dealing with the situation.
I ain't with him, I ain't now. I'm up here, he's down now.
And a little comic dialogue there. She does it very well.
You are caring for your wife?
And this is the kind of thing that I really like to do, where somebody says something and in fact lays it absolutely on the line. So what you get is the real core, the emotional core, the substance of what the film is about, leaping out and hitting you in the face. Do you love your wife? She says. This is a key moment.
It's like a dripping tap.
Very courageous of these actors to be able to play such a subtle, emotional scene on this contraption, this low loader with a car and lights and camera and team, all, you know, trudging round central London like some kind of Heath Robinson of device. And there they are at the centre of it all on this hot day in the middle of summer 2002, baking away and delivering this incredible subtle acting. And we didn't re-record it. It's a major achievement.
What?
The plot. She's forgotten to phone Safeways.
Watch the space, you're disgusting. I'll get the number.
Right.
Oui, oui. Be careful.
Yeah, I got it.
Alors, on y va?
I love it when people talk other languages. Topsy-Turvy was full of it, of course, but here, a French woman talking French, no big deal really, but I do like the unlikely elements coming together.
I am Cécile.
A couple of Japanese tourist girls coming out there, which we placed very carefully. Now, there's a moment here where a sort of device, because obviously lots of people think, oh, God, he's going into the hotel, what's going to happen? So it's important that we hold on this same shot. We don't cut away. There's no question that this is real time and that he's gone in, put down the vase, and out he comes. If we actually cut in any way, then you would be forgiven for thinking that he'd gone up to her room or something, which some people, to my surprise, thought. Something's happened though, and it isn't to do with that. It's to do with what they talked about. And again, you see, I'm using the fact that this part of the scene was shot very early on a Sunday morning, so there isn't all that traffic. It's perhaps slightly out of style with the traffic before, but it's helpful because it makes it, just for a moment, less busy. And I love the way that technology is at work here with this kind of very raw, emotional stuff. But the technology, the car, the taxi radio, the mobile. Now you watch Lesley Manville's acting here. The message is delivered, she's not interested, she's got the job to get on with, and then suddenly that change, it's extraordinary. Watch it again in a minute when you're bored by the next bit. Wind back and watch it. It's extraordinary. An overhead shot, don't do this very often, but just for that moment it's felt right to tell that story from above. And now, handheld, rushing with her, we're with her all the way. That was a real Safeways employee who took part for a moment. You can hire this special ambulance with its ambulance men who will come and be in films for you. Out she comes, a tracking shot. There we are, racing along with her. The crisis, the telephone, the moment, goes to the bike. She's got to phone somebody. She's got to phone Rachel. She's got to phone Phil. She's got to let them know what's happening. They're not there. Where are they, for God's sake?
Phil.
Where is he? What's he doing? He's turned his phone. What's he up to? He's in his own crisis. He's getting away from it all. So the camera is moving, and in a close-up outside Safeway. There's that dome again, that folly, that fossil. And what a sensitive, heartfelt performance this is from Alison Garland. And listen to the music, Andrew Dixon's beautiful music, getting to the emotional core of the whole thing. We filmed this in the empty, disused Greenwich Hospital.
Okay, Rory, you're in good hands now, okay? Gladiator cars, dynasty...
Davine Henry here on the screen, the most wonderful, dry, deadpan kind of actress who is very good at these London characters that she grew up with. She's got a wonderful kind of droll style, which I love.
He switched off his phone.
Very real.
Yeah. Well, can you send us a taxi up at Safeway so I can't get down the hospital? My son's been taken in.
No problem.
Yeah, straight away, and I'm waiting outside the front.
These kinds of scenes could be terrible if the acting weren't so solid and grounded. It would just be terrible, sentimental plot stuff. Now, this is one of my favourite moments coming up.
Can anyone go Safeways? Is there anyone free for Safeways?
27.
27, can you pick up Penny, Phil's wife?
Yeah, and guess who?
She got to go hospital.
Is he going to have a crash? He can't. He's already had one crash.
Something wrong with the son.
On my way.
Now, this is my favourite moment coming up.
Yeah, I'm docking your wages.
I'm telling Mummy.
I'm telling Mummy. I just love that. It makes me laugh, and it says so much about these guys. But meanwhile, down in the bowels of the countryside, and you can get out of London pretty quick if you go down southeast. Meanwhile, back at the supermarket.
Oh, sorry.
She nearly got in the back because it was a minicab, but she realised, as she knows the guy, as it's Ron, she should get in the front.
Rory, we're going to set you up, okay? After 3, 1...
The nurse here is played by Valerie Hunkins, who in fact is an actress who has much experience as a nurse, so that was very useful. And Robert Wilford here plays the doctor. No experience as a doctor, he's a very good actor. And a man with a great sense of humour and a great young character actor. And you'll see that in the way he does this. Very accurate, modern young guy, complete with stubble.
It's all right, I won't tell your mum.
What'd you have for breakfast this morning, Rory?
Fried egg sandwich.
Ooh, fried egg sandwich. Very tasty.
I try to use the elements of Greek tragedy in these films very often. I mean, the fried egg sandwich is an augury of disaster, and here is another disaster about to happen. Fuck! Well, we spent a whole day filming this. This is a classic piece of film car accident stuff, something you don't see in a Mike Leigh film, but there it is. I just felt, you know, it can happen, you know, this guy, you know, you have an accident, you get your car fixed, and then you have another one, and unfortunately this happens to happen at the wrong time. This is a film about things happening at the wrong time.
Not too quick.
The depth of Lesley's acting, her characterisation in this film is extraordinary. I mean, look at this scuttling, worrying woman. You just sense those emotions, and if you don't sense them yet, boy, you're going to sense them in a minute when she gets into the ward with Rory.
Rory! Rory!
And how serene is Maureen, what Ruth does with the character, how sensitive. And of course, it's achieved by the most intelligent kind of acting. Because the actors here, you see them acting with great freedom and the space in which to absolutely go the whole way and be as real as possible and to plumb the depth of those emotions. But it's only possible to make this happen by incredibly complex and sophisticated organisation. So obviously I've directed it and I've worked along with the actors in great detail with Dick Pope, the cinematographer, in deciding what the shots were. But of course there's a great deal more organisation involved. The whole thing has to be, apart from having been to be designed, the thing has to be organised in the shoot. We have a very excellent and brilliant young first assistant director called Josh Robertson. And there's an overall plan. Georgina Lowe is an incredible line producer, and her production coordinator, Danielle Brandon, people that have worked to make sure that all the elements fit together, including people available to help us with medical research, so that all this stuff can happen. And the actual moment when the camera turns over is a moment of complete and total organic accuracy, because the whole system of the filmmaking process is surrounding and supporting what's going on in front of the camera. But of course we don't say in the film where we are. And what I love about this moment is you kind of think, hang on, where are we? Are we in Tennessee? Are we in the States? Where are we? In fact, it's at Dungeness, down on the Kent coast. And in fact, we are in this spot that you see here, and indeed all the spots in this little sequence at Dungeness. We are just walking distance from the house of the late, great filmmaker Derek Jarman, whose garden is still kept just as he designed it in the years before he died. It's a most extraordinary landscape, and it just seemed right to be, in a slightly metaphorical way, the place where Phil should escape to. And I like the contrast between what we've just seen with its almost surreal quality and the kind of conversational, mundane bluntness of this moment, which is why I've shot it in this, to begin with, in this three-shot where the chat is just happening, though we do in a moment cut in on them and see the women in close-up.
Rachel ain't at home. She's probably gone up the market or something. I'll try and get her.
And of course this is packed with carefully structured information about where people are and, you know, what she's found out, what Penny's found out and what she's not found out. And she is on the spot because she doesn't know where he is. And it's just one of those terrible coincidences that he's walked away at the moment of crisis. We did very little to this environment, though all credit to the designer Eve Stewart and our location manager Neil Leigh for having found this location. But once we were there, it just worked for us, and the light was completely, I mean, we just were blessed at the time when we went to shoot it with the most perfect light, which from a cinematographic point of view, from a photographic point of view, is just magic. If you look at the horizon, you can actually see a continent-bound boat coming in. It's coming from the continent, it's going back towards England from France. A car ferry. And what Timothy Spall is doing in this scene is very extraordinary, because this is the kind of scene that there isn't any dialogue, and you have to kind of get the hang of what's going on. So you kind of know, but at the same time, in some way it is enigmatic. Tim and I worked extremely hard to make so many things happen in this one moment. And of course it was liberated, because when we got to the environment, it was such a magical place. The sea, the sky, the wind, the light.
I'm just trying to get hold of your dad.
By contrast with this mundane, bleak hospital. There's this very tragic sense going on here. And yet when the doctor arrives, any minute now, we're going to move into yet another kind of mood. What is in fact a mood of levity, almost a comic mood. And what I like, and what I'm doing in this at this stage of the film, is to juxtapose these different kinds of moods and elements very close to each other.
I'm the doctor. I examined Rory before tea. And I bet you're Rory's sister.
Yeah.
So on one level, this scene you're about to watch now is a scene full of information. It's medical information. It's, you know, it's about Rory's condition, about his history, about his prognosis. On another level, obviously, it's about Penny, her guilt, her sense of failure.
And you had a heart attack?
And it's also, as always, with this kind of material, it's a series of character studies, not least the character of the doctor here, who could just be a mouthpiece telling you information. But it's important that he lives in his own right. He has a status as a character, albeit a minor one, in his own right. Because what I try and do in these films is to have a whole series of characters, all of whom you really can believe in.
I can't believe all this.
Yeah, I know. We think that's what must be wrong with Rory, but the consultant's got to have a look at him tomorrow.
What's going to happen?
Of course, as I've said, we did copious research into every aspect of the medical and indeed the medical politics of this condition and this situation. So here, this guy cannot actually issue any information. It has to come from the consultant.
Not to worry.
From his
Lots of
bosses.
people take pills every day of their lives and they're none the worse for it. Hey, Rory will just pop in, see a cardiologist every 6 months and everything should be cool.
My father was a doctor, a committed health service doctor who spent his life sitting at the bedsides of working class people in Salford. And so I sort of come from a background, because I had other relations in my family who were doctors as well, and I grew up with this whole thing of doctors sort of saying, oh, it's fine, you've just got this, that, the other disease. No, you'll be fine, you'll live, nothing to worry about. And so in a way, for me, and I've dealt with doctors before, I am putting something of my own personal background into this. I always do when there's anything medical going on.
Crisps, all that crap, eh, Rory? The sooner you get rid of them, the better it'll be for you.
Because every filmmaker, every team of people that make a film, when you get to the end of the shoot, there's always some scene that you never got time to do. And usually it goes by the board. Now, this scene in the car had to be shot because it's absolute plot, and it's the other half of this scene, which of course we'd shot some weeks earlier at the hospital. So we had to go out 2 or 3 days after we'd shot and finished the entire movie and shoot this little scene in the car. And so this was shot very much with an end-of-term atmosphere on the go.
We're up at the hospital with South London General.
What do you mean, heart attack?
What do you mean, what do I mean, heart attack?
Is he all right?
No, he ain't all right.
He ain't dead, is he?
Of course he ain't dead. Where are you?
What? I'm just coming up with that big Chinese supermarket.
You know the one on the roundabout down by the...
For fuck's sake!
And she says, for fuck's sake, that's the only time she swears in the entire film. She's not a character who swears. She's surrounded by other characters who do swear, not including Phil, by the way, who never swears. They're not a couple who swear. But she is so pressed at that moment. She's so round off with him that she says fuck.
It's funny, I'm starving. But...
Now, as I've said, all these scenes, finally, after the long rehearsal period that created the characters, we arrive at the actual scene itself by having improvisations in the actual location. And when we were doing the improvisations, or an improvisation to create this scene, a baby did actually start to cry nearby in an adjacent building. And it did actually inform what happened in the scene and seemed very poignant and relevant to what is actually going on between this pregnant girl and her single mother. And so I used it, and of course we put a baby in the scene, which of course we added later when we dubbed the thing. But the idea for a baby crying somewhere in an adjacent flat came from the fact that it actually happened when we were putting this scene together.
You're scared? We'll be all right.
Now, I had quite a struggle with the whole question of the structure at the back end of the film here. I think it works perfectly well. But if you were to, and you can do this at your leisure, if you were to take it to bits and analyse it carefully, it's probable that you may think that the various things that happen to these various three units of people are altogether not set out quite logically in the right order. This has a feeling of being a bit later on at night, and possibly the scene that follows it with Samantha, who's there at the door, may have a very late night feel about it. And obviously Phil would arrive at the hospital perhaps somewhat earlier. But if we intercut them in a way that was logical in terms of time and chronology, it would be a very clumsy piece of storytelling, because the central characters in the film, the central family, are Phil and Penny and Rachel and Rory. And so it felt to me that it was more important to do what is basically a bit of dramatic cheating, and that is to leave them once and for all when we leave them and deal with these other stories and the conclusion of these other stories and the coming to a head of these other stories, and to let them arrive at their full stop. And then when we go back to the main family, we stick with them to the end of the film. And that's what we are now seeing.
What?
I think this scene with these two is a great piece of success on their parts, and I feel very proud of having worked with them on it. It's a very difficult kind of story to tell. I mean, this guy is very, very, very screwed up. Obviously, he's been pushed by her treatment to this extraordinary length, and courtesy of some very fine makeup. You know, by Christine Blundell, he's carved this thing in his chest.
Get out scenes, you need to go to hospital, right?
Remember what happened to Samantha earlier. Remember how when the crisis happened and it was she that phoned for the ambulance, she took control of the situation. And as I said at the time, you know, you see that she is somebody who can be responsible, who isn't just a bundle of cynicism. You know, she is a proper person underneath it all. And here you see that happening again. You know, she says, you know, I don't love you, I don't even like you, but still there is compassion within her, and as you'll see in this next scene, when she goes back to her room, she really is affected by this thing. And so it ends her journey within the frame of the film, and it ends the journey of that poor young guy Craig, and her parents' journey ended by their sinking into alcoholic oblivion.
Excuse me. Can I help you?
That's my boy,
Can you tell me his name, please?
Rory Bassett.
Okay, Mr. Bassett, in you go.
Just an ordinary piece of routine bureaucracy that happens at intensive care units.
Sorry.
Now, this scene, which is commencing here, is the scene that Melvyn Bragg's South Bank show filmed us filming. So there is footage kicking around, if you can find it, of us filming this scene.
Don't be stupid, you've only just got here. Oh, no, it's all right. Get yourself a cup of tea. I'll just wait outside.
It's perhaps just worth looking at the shots here, since we are talking about filming it. There's a shot, he started with him coming in, and it's ending with him walking out of the frame, which he's about to do. He has a look round first to check the other people. This is a new shot, and then he comes.
He's asleep now.
So this is a shot that unites the three of them together within one frame, so that you see the parents and the different things that they're doing, but focus on Rory in the middle and his condition.
I got lost downstairs.
So we're slightly standing back from them and looking at them objectively. And now we cut in on what really we call medium close-ups. Now, where the camera is in relation to Lesley, to Penny, is down, looking straight at her, but the shot of him, which intercuts with that, is more, see, from her point of view, looking up at him. Now, that really, in strict terms, is slightly irregular. But we think it works, and the reason for it is that now the same shot serves him sitting down. As he sits down, the camera tilts down with him and is back on the same angle on her, though that time it was on a tighter shot of her, now it's gone wide again, two different sizes. And now the levels, looking straight at them, do actually match. But that's the kind of breaking the rule that you can do, because it just helps the general style and the dynamics of how the shots interrelate to each other. So the discipline of how we're looking at the three of them at the moment in this scene is looking straight at him from her point of view, looking straight at her from his point of view, and when we look at Rory, it's as though we're looking at straight down at him from their collective point of view in the middle.
Leave it out, Mum.
Now there, of course, we cut to what is, strictly speaking, not her point of view, because it's right down beside him. but it's from her implied point of view, which is to say from her general direction. But we just felt it was a good way to be in there very close on Rory. And again, because it's slightly further away, further round than her actual point of view, it's a slightly objective view of him. And now we're back looking at him from Phil's implied point of view. And Phil, still in that original shot, gets up and looks down at him.
You've been in the wars, haven't you?
So that the shot of Rory serves to intercut with Phil, because Phil actually came into the shot of Rory.
Gone on a day.
And of course she just can't believe what she's just heard.
We'll go away. If it's better. Yeah? 4 of us. Yeah? Disney World?
We debated whether he should say Disney World or not, and it seemed to me that it was absolutely important that he did.
What?
That he does say Disney World, because suddenly, you know, just to kind of find yourself thinking about Florida and Disney World and Disney and all that, the Epcot Centre and all the rest of it, from the depths of this moment seemed to me to be, again, it's one of those juxtapositions that is what life is all about.
Don't want to leave him. I know, but the night staff will take good care of him.
Now we've gone back and we look at this formally, and we will also be formal when we come to the next shot. We just allow this to happen within the frame, this emotional moment. We could have been in there very tight, but we've done that. And now this isn't about intimate moment by itself. This is actually also about man, woman and boy in ward. So it's about the ward with them in it. So therefore it makes sense to look at it in that way. Just as this is about corridor.
Got to go home now. So you asleep? Yeah, really.
You'll be all right.
We rehearsed this very precisely, like most of the film, but visually precisely. And the timing of where that arm goes up and where she just breaks free from him, and that says so much about the relationship. The timing of where those things happen was absolutely critical and crucial. This is another one of those nocturnal low loader shots. Notice that Rachel is in soft focus there at the back, which makes sense and is a technical necessity. And still Andrew Dixon's music is doing this extraordinary work. The 2 guitars are earning their keep with the rest of the ensemble. And Dick Pope's lighting here is quite brilliant. And of course, what happens when we do a scene like this, we have to collaborate and decide on logically which lights are turned on and when they're on, and you know who turns them on and all that kind of thing, in order to give him the motivation, the lighting motivation. And you'll notice as Penny walks over towards Rachel, you'll see that having got his beer, when he goes out again, the light will come on in the room. Even the light in the fridge is important from a cinematographic point of view, from a photographic point of view. One of the things in films that you've got to be constantly vigilant about is clocks. Constantly, I'm always asked, what time is it? The continuity person wants to know, what time is it? The prop men want to set the clock. And of course, from a narrative point of view, you've got to be on the button because, you know, okay, there it is. You can see what time it is. I don't have to tell you. But it's important to know, because the audience is going to be monitoring this. You're going to be looking at it. That was the camera panning over by itself what I've discussed earlier, an unmotivated pan. That's to say, rather than going because somebody moved, the camera, in a way, took on the responsibility of telling the story itself. And a small time jump here.
Knocked him out till morning.
Obviously, it's a few minutes later. The drink is made, and now we're into the major scene.
Run you up there.
No, you don't have to do that.
No, it's all right. I won't hang about. I'll come in with you, say hello, make sure he's all right, and then get straight on the radio.
Sometimes it's not exactly understood what we've done with this kind of stuff in these films, and this film is absolutely no exception. We've not just generally got the dialogue together and written it through rehearsal and things. It's actually very, very precise. So the actual rhythms are totally worked out. Where somebody slightly overlaps with somebody else or interrupts somebody, it's totally worked out. We've been very, very precise. We've been as precise as any concerto would be in performance or any opera.
Phil, Rory is in hospital.
Yeah. Sorry.
So the subtext is important. The emotions are important. What motivates each moment is important. Where each character is and where they look and don't look and all of those things, the space between them is important, but also the rhythms of the language.
I do these all in packages. What's name?
See, here he's into a passage where he starts talking quickly.
It's about getting by, week in, week out. It
And
ain't a game.
she comes back at him. There's an
Just because you suddenly got some bee in your bonnet about
It's an argument. There's an up-tempo pace.
when you've been lying in bed for years till God knows what time. And we're all supposed to be grateful because you decided to do what normal people do. I get up in the mornings. Rachel gets up in the mornings. Make me sick.
We spent months and months living with these characters, and the only person that either Lesley or Tim Spall talked to about what their character, each of those characters was actually going through, was of course me, because that's my job. And I knew that there was the absolute potential there for this sort of thing to happen. And so I made sure we moved towards it so that we would finally come to it and the bubble would burst and all kinds of truths would come out.
Yeah, then. It's all on your side, isn't it? Ain't none on mine.
And what's happening here is she's letting out a great deal of resentment, a great deal of bitterness, which had built up. And I actually saw it build up. It built up during the months and months of rehearsal, which represented the years and years of the relationship as the kids were growing up and as Phil and Penny's relationship kind of started to go off.
If you do.
Or to lose itself, if you
like. When you're done, give us a bell on my mobile. Run you up the hospital, see your brother, yeah?
Oh, you have it switched on then, will you? Not like today. Your son's in hospital having a heart attack. And we
Very
can't get
bitter,
hold of you. Get hold
but
of me.
underneath
Whenever
it
I have
all,
an
there are
emergency,
feelings that
can't get hold
are
of
going
you,
to
Dad,
come
no,
out, that are there, welling up. The connection is waiting to make itself.
What have you been doing all day?
Switched it off.
Yeah, I know you switched it off.
The props, look at that owl at the back. Every prop has been carefully selected to go in the flat, but of course when it comes to it, as with all filmmaking, each frame, each shot individually demands that the art department, with the cinematographer and in collaboration with the director, slightly organise or reorganise things just for that shot, because film's a two-dimensional medium and it's important that what we're actually watching in each shot serves that particular shot. So that owl in real terms has probably moved around quite a bit on that television set, but it's in exactly the right place for that particular shot. When you see those photographs of Rachel and Rory when they were kids, of course, you've guessed, these are actually photographs of the real Alison Garland and James Corden when they were kids. And we just asked them to bring in a pile for us to choose from. That's fairly standard procedure. So it's a sort of cheat. I mean, certainly you've got this picture of Rachel looking quite cheerful when she was tiny. But to get a picture of her, a real picture of her as a tiny person, actually in character, is quite difficult.
About? What's that got to do with anything?
It's got to do with everything.
Rory has had a heart attack.
It took us the best part of a week to work up this scene to its final precision. And to do that, again, we had to rehearse it in the flat with nobody else there, just the actors and myself and 2 or 3 people looking after us and servicing the rehearsal. And of course, my long-time and very trusty script supervisor, Heather Storr, who's worked with me on all my films since Meantime in 1983, whose job is to, stay on the, make the notes and write the thing up as it gets rehearsed and written, and then to do all the continuity notes for the film.
Why are you saying all this to me?
What's name? unbearable.
I've worked with a lot of actors over the course of my directing career, which goes back to it really goes back to 1962, I guess, all in all. And I have to say that, not to insult anybody else I've worked with, these two in this scene are just as extraordinary as anybody I've ever worked with. I mean, this scene is such a remarkable piece of acting on both their parts, and it's a privilege and a pleasure to be able to work with actors. I mean, you can work with good actors and you can have good material and good ideas, but only with great actors can you go forward with it and take it onto a level that you couldn't possibly have imagined, and that's what happens here. And of course, it's one thing to do it in the rehearsals or do it once, but these guys can do it when they need to do it. They can do it when the camera turns over. They can do it when the trains in the railway station right next to the location aren't running, and everybody says, OK, now is the time to shoot it. They deliver the goods at that moment. That's real, proper, professional acting, as well as being great, great artistry. And as I say, for me, it's a privilege and a pleasure to work with these guys. And it's very sad that in some quarters, these performances, and indeed this film, have been rather rubbished by some people. Because I don't know, really, a film contemporary with this film that has better and more profound and more thorough acting than what you're watching at this moment on your screen. And throughout, these actors are actors acting in character.
I couldn't believe it.
They are never relapsing into merely indulging themselves. They are dealing with these people who are not them, these people who they care about, they understand, they are inhabiting, but they're not merely, as we say, letting it all hang out. It's all about these people properly observed and properly performed and properly investigated.
We ain't a family. That's it.
And when I say that a sequence like this, like all the action in this film and all my films, comes out of lots of improvisation, what that means in this particular context is that we explored this stuff in and out in all kinds of ways through all kinds of improvisations, and my job really is to collect together and distill down all kinds of different elements and put them together, and so to build up the best of things and to focus it to something which is concentrated and coherent and dramatic, and also takes no longer than it ought to take in screen time terms.
Sorry. No, I ain't.
We've moved back to a very low angle shot so that you see the room and you see her above him, and it's a little bit more objective than up to now. All of the scene that you've just watched that we've been talking about has been shot, as it were, with the camera looking backwards and forwards from in between them.
It feels like
That's to say, they're implied points of view of each other. Now we've come out and we're simply looking at them. This is man and woman in room again.
Yeah.
So in a way, I'm allowing you, in a sense, to breathe. The confrontation has stopped. She's dealing with it. She's moving away now. She's going to go and get him a handkerchief. And while she's there, it just occurs to her, when she's got her paper hankies out, that maybe she should see how Rachel is. She's aware that Rachel walked out when the heat started to rise.
Rachel?
But she's not in her room. She's been listening.
What are you doing there?
I love that shot, and I think what Alison at the top of the stairs is doing is extraordinarily moving and slightly terrifying too, and off she scuttles. We cut back to him. It's important to see him, to hold, but it also facilitates a little time jump, during which time Rachel has sat down and now Penny has joined her. We've gone in very tight on a shot which is where Rachel is very big in the frame. If you look back on the film, you'll find that Penny really has lost the ability to touch those that she loves in her family. Although, of course, she has just been in the hospital, and because of the change of circumstances, she's been able to touch Rory, to make physical contact with him, to love him by touching him, and that's what's happening here.
You do talk to him like that? Do I?
And I just love it. I mean, we managed to find this moment where, in fact, what happens is Rachel lays it on the line. She tells her the truth. And she takes it on board. She appreciates it. And she's going to act on it. I wonder what she was going to say. But she decides not to say it. Now, this shot was an afterthought. It wasn't in my original plan of shots for this sequence, but then I realised that you have to see this moment where she comes downstairs and you have to see her digesting what's just happened upstairs, what Rachel has said to her, and thinking about Phil. You have to just kind of go through this moment with her. And that really helps to motivate what happens next. Now, this next scene, this scene here, which has just begun, is the most extraordinary example of a real collaboration, not only between two actors, one with the other, or two actors with the director, or two actors with the director and the cinematographer, but with a whole gang of people. Because as you will notice with this shot, this scene, that it is one long continuous tracking shot. That's to say the camera tracks, moves forwards on the dolly on wheels, very, very slowly towards the actors throughout the entire scene. Ever since she came through the door and I've been talking and you've been watching it, the camera has been very, very subtly moving. It moves nearer and nearer until eventually it's in a very tight close-up of the two of them. Now, you may say, well, sure, there's a guy pushing the camera and there's a guy, and those that know about these things know that somebody is pulling focus so that it constantly remains in focus as it gets nearer. But everybody's involved, apart from the fact that everybody had to make sure there was silence everywhere and that kind of thing. If you look in the bottom of the frame, just to the right of Phil, you'll see there's that glass and that can of beer, and it's on a table. Now, in fact, as the dolly, the tracking dolly, that's to say the device on which the camera is fixed, which is on its tracks, in fact it was on wooden floor, as it moves nearer and nearer, there will come a point when it moves so near to the armchair that in fact the table and the things on the table, the glass and the can of beer and so forth, are in fact in the way. And in fact what happens is the two wonderful prop men who worked on this film actually creep very, very quietly and very unobtrusively just to the side, and they remove the table just in time, in complete silence, and not only in silence, but so subtly as it doesn't distract the actors, because of course while all this stuff is going on, these two actors are giving the performances of a lifetime and being incredibly concentrated and emotionally in focus. And so, you know, it's removed so that the camera can get in there. And everybody is moving subtly nearer. The guy with the boom swinger with a microphone is quietly moving closer to them as the camera moves in. And it's very, very subtle. See, that thing is still in there. You can still see the can of beer. But we are getting closer, and it's very, very critical. And as soon as we reach a point when that can of beer is out of the frame, you can be sure that those guys are on the case and it's being removed. But even after the thing is shot, later, much later in the dub, that's to say the time of the filmmaking when the soundtrack is absolutely adjusted and cleaned up and made perfect, the very slightest extraneous noise was removed digitally, so that you have a perfect harmony of the relationship between all branches of filmmaking all going on in this one very, very dramatic and emotional shot. It's a very simple shot in some ways. It's a very simple way of dealing with two people in a room. But at the same time, it's immensely complex, because what we actually go through to achieve it is epic and mammoth and absolutely worth it, I feel. And it's very much the strength of the actors is that they can deal with all these things going on and all these gizmos whirling about without feeling in any way compromised or losing their concentration. There have been scenes in a number of my films. The most famous was Cynthia and Hortense in Secrets and Lies at the table in the cafe, where you could have a very long scene in one shot, of course, but you can't have it longer than 10 minutes because that's the length of a roll of film. This one comfortably comes under that length, but that's something that one does have to bear in mind in constructing a scene like this, because when a roll of film runs out, that's the end of the shot. Now here it seemed necessary to fade, and it's the only time in the film where we do fade, and allow us little space on the screen, because in fact what happens next isn't the next day, it's a few days later, and somehow one needs just a little time to breathe and implicitly let time go by before cutting to this final scene. And of course, you know, we're doing subtle things here. There are bright colours. The whole thing has a brighter feel to it. He has shaved. She's looking much prettier than usual. She's made herself up properly. He's got a very yellow bunch of bananas. The light is circulating around this place with a great sort of resonance. And there's a general mood, which, of course, is all about what is, broadly speaking, happening in this last passage of the film. I love the way in that previous shot, you know, we're able to look through the window and see the real world out there for real, because I think it's important.
How'd they get you up here?
I come up in a wheelchair.
Did you?
Yeah.
Got you some bananas, mate.
Cheers.
Yeah, I got you something and all.
Yeah, what is it?
Oh, open it.
Now, this is very good publicity for British home stores, which apparently they were very happy with.
It's a dressing gown.
Dressing gown?
And this is one of their excellent dressing gowns.
For?
Yeah, for when you go toilet and that.
All right, we'll stick it in there.
I think what James Corden does here, playing Rory, is very, very good. I mean, you know, he's sort of created this guy who just is in such a pother and in such a state throughout the entire film that all he can do is curse and swear and kick and bunch. But he's been through this trauma. He's been given his raison d'etre, and James has found the way that the guy moves forward, the way it affects him.
Yeah?
It's his lifeline to being a proper person, like we talked about Samantha. Of course, the big question mark that hangs over this scene is, yes, but what about Rachel? We know she's had a tough time. We know she's going through something that's hard to deal with at work with Sid. She's taken time off work. They're talking about that here now. But
why ain't you been in?
When it comes to the end of the scene, there's a definite sense of the positive, certainly for the other three. But a question mark hangs over her. I think that's important for a number of reasons. It's important because I think it's important that her journey shouldn't be cheated on. It's plainly something that will resolve itself in the fullness of time, but not necessarily just yet. But also, from another point of view, I think it's important that, for me, with my films, that when I get to the end of the film, I leave you, the audience, something to work with, something to go away and ponder, things to discuss, things to argue about, things to care about, so that you can't just walk away and forget the whole thing like you can with many a Hollywood movie. And the fact that, overall there's a sort of positive feeling, a feeling of redemption in this sequence at the end of the film. Nevertheless, there is something that just casts a shadow, that makes it hang back a bit, that makes it less than straightforward. I think it's important for you to have that sense that life goes on and nothing is absolutely perfect, and it's not a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow and everything isn't hunky-dory and they didn't all naturally live happily ever afterwards, although there is a kind of sense of possibilities, of positive hope and possibilities, which I hope the end of this film does give you.
There's all sorts in that car.
That's right.
All right, Rach? Yeah.
And as I say, it's an open question whether she is all right.
You want to be careful, you.
Now, Lesley does hear something at this moment, in this next cut, right here, coming up, that is, well, it moves me every time I see it. It's very extraordinary and very, very lovely. And very clever. But the final word goes to Dick Pope, the cinematographer. Look at that shot. Look at the atmosphere, the mood, the light, the feelings you get from it. And we're just, once again, looking through the door. And we're framing within the frame. And somebody walks past and the film ends. And I'm not going to talk through the titles because you can just read them, basically.